Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. In a major boost to India-Mongolia relations, both countries have decided to deepen their strategic partnership across defense, energy and cultural spheres. During talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and visiting Mongolian President Khurelsukh Ukhnaa, India announced a series of new initiatives, including funding for Mongolia's fast oil refinery, training for its armed forces and free e-visas for the Mongolian citizens. As many as 10 agreements were signed spanning areas such as cultural exchange, immigration, geology, mineral resources and humanitarian aid. The two leaders also unveiled new projects linking Nalanda University with Mongolia's Gandan Monastery and promoting people-to-people ties through a cultural partnership between Ladakh and Mongolia's Arkhangai province. Prime Minister Narendra Modi described India and Mongolia as spiritual siblings, united by the shared legacy of Buddhism, while President Ukhnaa hailed India as a trusted development partner. So this visit marks a significant step forward in expanding cooperation in the areas of energy, critical minerals, digital innovation and skill development, as the two democracies reaffirm their commitment to closer collaboration in the years ahead. To discuss the key outcomes of the Mongolian President's visit to India, the evolution of bilateral ties over the last 70 years, and the growing convergence between the two countries, I'm joined by two distinguished guests. Former Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, he's a former diplomat. Ambassador, welcome to the program. Always a pleasure to have you on Sansad TV. And Professor Mahesh Ranjan Debata, he's Associate Professor, Center for Inner Asian Studies, School of International Studies, JNU. Professor, welcome to the program. Glad to have you with us on this telecast as well. Ambassador, let's begin the program with you. So this visit of the Mongolian President to India comes as both countries celebrate 70 years of diplomatic ties, also 10 years of strategic partnership. So how do you see this partnership having evolved over the last 7 decades, from shared Buddhist heritage to now strategic partnership?
Yes, thank you very much once again, Tina, for having me on the show. Very significant partnership, very significant relationship. As you said very rightly, 70 years of diplomatic relations. The diplomatic relations were established in 1955. So the Mongolian embassy was established in New Delhi within about a year of that, 1956. And the Indian embassy was established, diplomatic representation in Ulaanbaatar was established in 1971. Between 1955 and 1971, our embassy in Moscow that took care of our partnership with Mongolia. After that, we had a very significant appointment of Rinpoche Bakula, who was our ambassador there from 1990 to 2000, so for about 10 years. So he was really revered as a demigod in Mongolia. I remember my own visit to Ulaanbaatar just a few years ago, and I had occasion to discuss his tenure there. Although so much of time had elapsed, more than 20 years had elapsed, but he was still very fresh in the memory of the people there. So he did a great deal in terms of renovating a large number of Mongolian monasteries and spreading the gospel of Lord Buddha amongst the people and strengthening the partnership between the two countries. These are, as you have said, Prime Minister Modi mentioned the two countries as spiritual siblings, because Buddhism really binds these two countries together. The Mongolians call India as the third neighbor because, you know, it's a landlocked country. On the north, it is surrounded, it is bordered by Russia, on the south by China. But still, it looks upon India as a spiritual neighbor, as a third neighbor. So that is how it is likes to define India, the relations with India. And normally we have said that our relations between India and Mongolia are based on the 3 Ds. Democracy, Dharma and development partnership. Dharma, of course, is Buddhism, which binds the two countries together. Democracy, it is, you know, it used to be a satellite of the Soviet Union in the past, but it has come out of those shadows and it has emerged as a vibrant and a robust democracy. And the third, in terms of the development partnership, That also is an element that is going forward, particularly after the visit of Prime Minister Modi, the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Mongolia. It's a very important relationship, but still it took a long time for an Indian Prime Minister to go there.
Right.
2015, and that was the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. That was also the time when strategic strategic partnership was established between the two sides.
Yes.
And the last 10 years, Tina, have really seen a flowering and a blossoming of this partnership. And during the rest of the program, we are going to be discussing about that. But I think the visit by the Mongolian President to India, 13th to the 16th of October, 4-day visit, and that is a very strong, provide a very strong impetus to the growing and expanding relations between the two countries.
Absolutely. It comes at a time when both countries are marking 70 years of diplomatic relations, 10 years of strategic partnership, but also not to forget that this is President Ukhnaa's first visit to India, and how concrete in terms of taking our relationship to the next level is this visit going to be? We will discuss in due course of the program. But Professor, from the academic lens, let's also understand from you how deeply rooted have the civilizational and the Buddhist linkages been in shaping our modern diplomatic relationship with Mongolia. Ambassador explained to us quite comprehensively about how our relationship has evolved in terms of partnership and convergences in different sectors. But tell us about how deeply rooted have the cultural linkages been in shaping the relationship that we are talking about today.
Thank you, Tina. And it's wonderful to be with Ambassador Ashok Sajanbhai. You are absolutely right that our political diplomatic relationship may be 7 decades long, but our historical, cultural, and emotional relationship with Mongolia is as old as Methuselah, if you remember. So, as you rightly pointed out, that Buddhism has been the main connect between the two regions. I remember during my first visit to Ulaanbaatar, and whenever I meet any Mongol people, the first thing that they bow down, because I belong to the land of Buddha. So that is the connect between the two countries. If you go back to the history also, you see during the 3rd century AD to 8th century AD, this entire region, not only Mongolia, the region spanning from Afghanistan to Xinjiang to Central Asia to Mongolia, Buddhism was the main religion. It was prevalent there. And Sanskrit was the main lingua franca. So the Indian Buddhism has been the major connect between the two countries for the last so many centuries, you can say. And in the last 7 decades, as rightly pointed out by Ambassador Sajanbhai, the Buddhism and has become our cultural capital. He also talked about Rinpoche, Pushak Bakula Rinpoche, who was also our ambassador to Mongolia. In addition to that, also many scholars, when we talk about people-to-people connect, in the ancient times also, in the modern times also, we talk about scholars-to-scholar connect. Many Indian scholars, for example, you say Lokesh Chandra, and his father, I forgot his name, and then
Raghuveera.
Yeah. And then Madam Shashibala and the Mansoora Haidar, and many Indian scholars have visited that area to cement the cultural connect between the two countries.
In fact, that is something that is being revived as well, Professor. Among the agreements that were announced, one that relates to sort of strengthening this cultural linkage is Nalanda University being linked again to the Gandan Monastery, and the decision also to send a Sanskrit teacher. Now, these are certainly symbolic steps, but how do you see such cultural exchanges contribute to stronger people-to-people bonds?
Absolutely. It's when the civil society to civil society connect, people to people connect, scholars to scholar connect, then the sister city connection, then also the monastery to monastery connect. When this happens, that means that both the countries and both the people of these countries, they are connecting to each other through this. And the recent times, in the modern times also, we all talk about soft power. And Buddhism and our historical, cultural, or civilizational linkage between the two countries, that has become the soft power of both the countries, the mutual to spread the mutual relationship between the two countries.
Certainly. Ambassador, there have been several turning points, and especially in the last decade or so, the manner in which we've tried to elevate our relationship and expand our cooperation in different areas. In that context, what's been significant among the announcements made following the bilateral talks between the Mongolian President and Prime Minister Modi was India's $1.7 billion line of credit for Mongolia's first oil refinery, and this is being called the largest development partnership globally. How significant, according to you, is this project in terms of India's outreach in East Asia and especially in context of the energy diplomacy, the energy security context from the point of view of India?
No, absolutely. I think there's a very significant decision. Of course, it's been in the pipeline for quite some time. You know, as I was mentioning, when I had gone to Ulaanbaatar, even at that time, this was being spoken about. It started really as a $1.2 billion project. And, you know, with the passage of time, the value of that has increased because there has been some sort of a cost escalation. And we are very hopeful that by 2028, that is in another 2-3 years, it is going to be in operation. And, you know, Tina, what it really signifies is that once the refinery is set up and the refining capacity is put into operation, it will really be able to meet 80% of the needs of the demands of Mongolia. You know, at this moment, what Mongolia does is whatever are its crude oil production, exploitation, that is exported to China because, of course, China has huge energy needs. So those are that is all imported by China. And whatever are its requirements, Mongolia's requirements for finished petroleum products, they are all imported from Russia. So the whole idea is to make it more or less self-sufficient. Once this refinery is put into operation, it starts, you know, it comes online, then more than 80% of the requirements of Mongolia will be met with this. And of course, Mongolia is now starting to look at other sources of getting crude oil because it doesn't have any fresh supplies of crude oil. So that is also being worked out, and India is working with Mongolia on that. But in addition to that, there are a large number of, you know, I think what really determines, what really defines this relationship is that it is not a one-way partnership. In terms of capacity building, in terms of development partnership, this is taking the relationship to a much higher level, whether it is in the area of security and defense, whether it is in the area of, you know, you've spoken about cultural connect between the two countries. I could also add, you know, that there are the relics of two of the disciples of Lord Buddha, you know, Arihant Modgal Yana and Arihant Sariputra. Those relics will also be sent to Mongolia in 2026. Right. But in addition to that, you know, coming to the cooperation and collaboration, even in the area of security and defense, there is cooperation in the area of border defense, training in that area. Also, there is cooperation. So I think it's a very wide spectrum collaboration between the two sides. The 10 MOUs that have been signed between the two countries, and particularly I think since we've been talking about the $1.7 billion establishment of the refinery, one that catches my eye is on geology and exploration. Right. And there also, you know, since Mongolia has very rich supplies of coking coal, and India is a large importer of coking coal, whether it is from Indonesia or Australia or other countries. So, you know, we could import that commodity also from there, and that will be also to mutually benefit and to mutual advantage.
So, Ambassador, with India now training the Mongolian armed forces, we're also going to appoint a defense attaché in Ulaanbaatar. Do you see defense ties, the strategic cooperation emerging as a strong pillar in this partnership?
No, absolutely. I think that is a very important element, and as we've been discussing, when Prime Minister Modi went to Ulaanbaatar in 2015, and that is when the strategic element, the strategic content of the partnership was introduced, and it is, Mongolia has a huge land territorial expanse of about 3.5 or of about 1.5 million square kilometers. So it is virtually about 50% of the landmass of India. But in terms of its population, it is just 3.5 million. So, it's a very, very small, very sparsely populated country. And in that sense, it's security and defense, its border defense particularly becomes very important. And in that context, whether it is the military exercises that take place every year, we have military exercises, the military training that takes place when exercises take place. Our trainers go to Mongolia, and they also conduct training there. So that becomes also a very important element and component of the bilateral partnership.
So, Professor, we've spoken about the cultural linkages, the energy security, the defense and strategic partnership. But from a geostrategic context, if I try and understand from you, especially given Mongolia's location between Russia and China, how does India's engagement, according to you, fit into the larger Indo-Pacific and the Eurasian strategic framework, and especially in context of the evolving, ever-changing geopolitical scenario? How would you like to explain that to us and our viewers about its significance?
Thank you so much for the question. As it is well known that India's strategic autonomy has a parallel with the strategic ideas floated by the Mongolian government in the post-Cold War period to make a balance between Soviet Russia and China. Similarly, we are also making a balance between Russia and US in the last few years. So, as far as the Indo-Pacific issue is concerned, we have both India and Mongolia have a common stand. We want an open, free Indo-Pacific for strategic reason. As rightly pointed out by Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, we have been a third neighbor for the last so many years, along with USA, Korea, and Japan also. So since Modi's visit to Mongolia in 2015, the strategic relationship between both the countries has been taken to a new level. So we are mulling over the new strategic ideas, and to my understanding, our policy towards Mongolia should be connected to India's largest policy towards Eurasia.
Ambassador, there's growing global focus on the Indo-Pacific and Eurasia. How do you see both India and Mongolia working together to perhaps shape a more stable, rules-based regional order, at the same time keeping our partnership relevant despite the changing geopolitical dynamics?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that is what Prime Minister Modi mentioned in his remarks to the press, after the meeting was over, after the 10 MOUs were signed, after all these exchanges that had taken place. And he identified Mongolia as a close partner in the Indo-Pacific, that we look at a free and open, inclusive and prosperous Indo-Pacific. Both the countries are also in favor of freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights, and not allowing differences to evolve into disputes, resolving disputes through dialogue and not through coercion. So I think India and Mongolia are on the same page as far as the Indo-Pacific strategy of India is concerned. So I think both, although Mongolia is a landlocked country, but still in terms of, since that also depends upon peace, security, and stability in the Indo-Pacific. As we are talking, it also is dependent upon peaceful oceans and peaceful seas as far as its foreign trade is concerned. So I think this is also one of the important partners that India has in the area of a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Ambassador, there's also talk of India exploring routes via Russia and the Trans-Siberian Railway for Mongolian coal. Now, as someone who served in the region, you understand the area well. How realistic are these connectivity and trade link possibilities that India perhaps is looking at?
No, I think this is very important, because you would remember that when Prime Minister Modi had gone for the Eastern Economic Forum to Vladivostok in 2019, then there was discussion also about the Chennai-Vladivostok route.
Yes.
And now more recently, there also has been talk about the polar route that is going from East Asia to the Arctic region. And Russia is particularly keen to engage India as far as the exploration of the Arctic region is concerned, the Arctic Circle is concerned. This is particularly significant for us because China has been trying to expand its footprint. And of course, Russia is also equally wary. It would also like India to get involved in that area. So I think this connect from Mongolia, let us say up to Vladivostok, and then exporting coal and coking coal from there, as I had mentioned, that could be a very important source supply, another commodity that India could source from Mongolia, because it is imports about 53%. India, we import about 53% of our coal requirement from countries like Australia, Indonesia, Brazil, Argentina, etc., faraway countries. So here also, if you are able to source it from there, it will be to our advantage. If you permit, Tina, one particular issue I could very quickly mention that we have not spoken about.
Yes, Ambassador, please go ahead.
Yeah, that is the discussion that took place between the two sides on direct flights between the two sides. And the Mongolian president seems to have mentioned to Prime Minister Modi that there is an air carrier in Mongolia which is interested in exploring this sending chartered flights to India. And the fact that we have announced e-visas, gratis visas to Mongolian nationals, and since India is considered as the spiritual land, the land of the Buddha, so there could be possibility of good tourist inflows from Mongolia to India. And that could also be, Mongolia is also starting facilitating and providing gratis visas to Indian nationals who want to go there. And if it wishes to promote tourism, I think that could definitely be a very useful and an important vehicle to take the partnership forward.
Absolutely. Professor, as Ambassador highlighted, the growing areas of convergence, both sides are exploring opportunities. It's a time when we are celebrating 70 years of our diplomatic ties, but also at the same time, we are sort of re-looking at some of the areas in which we can further expand our partnership. Where do you see the biggest opportunities, but also some challenges in taking this relationship to the next level?
Firstly, I would suggest that there should be dedicated centers conducting research on Mongolia in India, and there should also be dedicated centers in Mongolia to study on India. That the society, culture, politics, and economy of both the countries. And then there should be grooming of young scholars also, because in the old times, some old scholars, they have contributed a lot to for the civilizational linkage between the two countries. And as rightly you told sometimes back about the Sanskrit teachers. The present Mongolian ambassador to India also, he was talking about there is a need of something around 1,500 English teachers where India can be fitting in, because Indian scholars, Indian educators can go there and teach and also train the young minds in Mongolia. There are many scholars from there coming from, young students and scholars are coming from Mongolia to study in India under the ambit of the ICACR, Indian Council of Cultural Relationship Fellowship. It should be increased so that they can come here, they can also know, they can also learn. There are also something around 450 Mongolian scholars are right now in Karnataka to learn the script, the languages of Sanskrit scripts and languages also. So there is a need to train these young scholars, and then through language and script learning.
Absolutely, you're right, Professor. If I'm not wrong, there are already initiatives like the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Center of Excellence for IT. There's also the India-Mongolia Friendship School. So India is already investing a lot in Mongolia's human capital. But at the same time, you're absolutely right that in order to take this goodwill and India's presence to sustain in Mongolia, a lot more needs to be done. For now, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. Time allows us to take up only that much on the program. So 70 years of friendship, 10 years of strategic partnership, and a renewed commitment to the future. India and Mongolia are certainly redefining their ties for a new era. Thank you once again, Ambassador and Professor, for joining us on the program today, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.